Welcome to the Non-Woke Coach podcast, the show that celebrates success without the woke. Each episode features successful people who have embraced their true nature as free, independent, exceptional beings with the capacity for well-being, rather than accepting the victimhood mindset of the woke agenda. I'm your host, Ellen McCarthy, and I'm glad you've tuned into this episode. In this episode, I'm thrilled to be joined by a renowned professional speaker with a global reach, a member of the Motivational Speakers Hall of Fame, an innovator who joined forces with prominent conservative author, filmmaker, and speaker Dinesh D'Souza to create a platform that addresses the unique needs of conservative business people. Please join me in welcoming Chris Widener, CEO of the Red Referral Network. Chris, thank you for being here.
Hey, Ellen, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Can you tell our audience what the Red Referral Network is?
Sure. Yeah, the Red Referral Network is a national movement of local-based groups of conservatives who want to do business with other conservatives. So they meet every week in a location chosen by them, and they get together, they get to know each other, they support one another. They learn from one another, as well as from Dinesh D'Souza, who provides weekly exclusive content just for the members of the group. But the big thing about the Red Referral Network, and that if you break it down word by word, it's red, it's conservative. They give referrals to one another, and it's a network of people who do that. So we're very excited about it, and excited about the ways that it can change the lives and the business lives of the people who join.
And I'm excited. I'm a member, and we'll get more into that later. And I can tell you, being a member, the support that you get from Chris and from Dinesh and from the other members is just absolutely fantastic. So,
well, we take customer service. Very, very seriously. We want to make sure that everybody's happy. You know probably that I worked with Zig Ziglar for a while and had a television show with him. And one of my favorite quotes is, "You can have anything you want in life if you help enough other people get what they want out of life." And that's really our philosophy: is how do we help people in those locations? How do we help them get what they want out of life, which is building their business, having a better life, understanding what's going on in culture around them. So we really do, as a leadership team, have that philosophy: is how do we support people? It's not we're up here and everybody else is down here. It's actually the other way around. I always say, in God's economy, we're the servants. Leaders are servants. They help other people. So that's really our philosophy, and I appreciate your kind words about it.
how did you come to partner with Dinesh to start this initiative?
Well, I've known Dinesh for quite some time. I think I interviewed him for the first time probably 10 years ago, and that's how we got to know each other. And of course, prior to knowing him, and then, just knowing him a little bit, saw his books, read his books, saw his movies, those kinds of things. And one of the things that Dinesh has talked about for a long time, actually one of the leaders in this whole idea of parallel economies, right? You don't, if somebody's going to treat you poorly, you don't stay in that economy anymore. You don't give them your money anymore. I always say this: if somebody's going to call you a transphobic, homophobic, sexist insurrectionist, they are entitled to their opinions. This is America. They are entitled to their opinions, but they are not entitled to your money. So if somebody has that opinion of me, and they are, running around telling everybody that me and people like me are bad people, they're entitled to their opinion, and I don't have a problem with that. But I'm not going to do business with them anymore. So after a while, we just kind of looked around and said, I think it's time for a new economy, an economy that's driven by conservatives doing business with conservatives, rather than giving our money to people who hate us.
No, absolutely true. And I was really glad that you just said what you did about them being, you're entitled to your opinion. This is America, but we don't have to give you our money. And I think that's so
it's
key.
Interesting, Ellen. One of the things that I've noticed as I did my research as we led up to launching this, conservatives are really good at boycotting big business. So we say, Amazon did this, I'm never shopping there again. Or, Walmart did this, or Target did that, I'm never going there again. Or Starbucks supported something that I didn't want to support, I'm never going there again. But let's take Starbucks for an example. You stop going to Starbucks, and now you transfer that $3, $4, $5, whatever you spend a day. I'm more of a drip coffee guy for $2, but I know there's people that get the foo-foo drinks for $5. Now you stop going to Starbucks, And now you give it to a local coffee shop. The question I would ask first and foremost is, do you know what political positions your local coffee shop actually has? Because chances are they also support, probably at least a 50% chance that they support the same kind of things that Starbucks does. So we're just shifting it over. But here's a statistic that I read that I found fascinating. Individuals and small businesses give 8 times more money than big businesses do to politicians and political organizations. So let's take Starbucks for an example. Let's say that in their annual budget, they put in $10 million for political activity. Now they're probably 90% going to be left-wing organizations. They may sprinkle a little amongst some more moderate Republicans just to kind of give them the cover of, well, we're nonpartisan. But $10 million, that's a lot of money. But we're in a country of 330 million people. It doesn't take a lot of individuals or small businesses to outpace that 10 million, and that's exactly what happens. I mean, it's a million people giving $10. It's 500,000 people giving $20. It's 100,000 people giving $100, and 100,000 people. It seems like a lot of people, but in a country of 330 million, it's really not. Which is why 8 times more money is given to leftist politicians and political organizations from small businesses and individuals than from big businesses. So in a way, we're actually making it more likely that those organizations will get our money by spending it in local small businesses than in those big businesses. So it's sort of law of unintended consequences, I think.
So how do we overcome that?
You do business with people who share your common beliefs and values, right? That's why we started the Red Referral Network. Every single week, you'll get together with a group of, as the groups grow, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 people, and you'll get to know who these other people are in your group. And as you're out and about doing your business, you might hear that somebody's looking for a real estate agent. And you say, I've got a real estate agent. Now, let's take a real estate agent, for example. You sell a $500,000 house, that's $15,000 in commission at 3%, which is a typical real estate's commission. $15,000 that is now available to whoever the real estate agent is to do whatever they want with. Now, most of it's going to go to their own living and, those kinds of things, but some of it's going to go to a politician or a political organization. I want to make sure that that money is going to organizations that support the kinds of things that I want to see supported. And as Dinesh always says, in fact, I was on Dinesh's podcast. You're in good company. I was in Dinesh's podcast yesterday. And he was talking about how all the different, groups that do it. And he said in India, Hindus do it. We do it here in America. Hindus who come to America, they want to do business with other Hindus, people who come from their country and support their beliefs and their religion. Mormons have traditionally done it. Jewish people have traditionally done it. Amish. It's traditionally been done in religious groups, but it's also in civic organizations. The people who belong to the Elks Club, they try to give business to other Elks members. Same with Rotary and Kiwanis and all those kinds of things. So this is really about getting to know other conservatives in your location and doing business with them so that money gets into their hands, and then some of that trickles into local politicians, federal politicians, and political organizations.
I can see it happening in our local community. I live in New York City, but we're in a part of New York City that is typically red.
Mm.
But we had it's the Rockaways, and in our neighborhood, it's called Breezy Point.
Yeah.
We had a neighbor of ours was running for a local assembly person in New York, right, on the Republican conservative ticket. He was winning by 200 votes the day election day happened. His opponent went out, and by the time she mobilized everybody, and he wasn't supported financially by the local Republican group, he wound up losing by, I think, less than 10 votes.
Mm.
So if I think a group like this, and in fact, I was speaking with him the other day because he was helping me identify prospective members of our local group, the Jamaica Bay, what I'm calling Jamaica Bay Red.
Yeah.
But it's tough. But the good thing is there are other conservatives. It's just in New York City, you're afraid to say you are.
Oh, I grew up in Seattle, Ellen. I know all about being afraid to tell people what you believe, because and it's sad in a way because, you know, I think Republicans, it's not that we're embarrassed of what we believe. I think it's more of, do I really want to spend the next 20 minutes arguing with this person? To me, that's what it is. It's more of a time management. It's a time management skill set more than anything. I try to decide, look, is this person open-minded? Because I'll talk to anybody who is open-minded, and I'll have great debates. I don't mind debates. I don't mind people disagreeing with me or even thinking I'm crazy, as long as we can have a legitimate debate and as long as both people can be honest about it. I don't know if you watch The Five. But I am actually friends with Judge Janine, and I love Harold Ford Jr. And I'm also friends with my former congressman who served in Congress with Harold Ford Jr. And I always say, you know why Harold Ford Jr. is my favorite Democrat? Because he's rational and he will listen to you and he will concede a point when you are right. It's not just partisan politics. And I feel like that's the way that I am as well. I'm willing to listen. But let's make it a conversation about what's really going on in America. If I'm wrong, I'll concede a point. If you're right, I'll concede a point. But I expect you to do the same with me. And that's how you come to honest conversation. And I think we need more of that. But the problem is it's become so polarized and the left is so apoplectic about things that it's very difficult to carry on those kinds of conversations. So often I just don't even respond. I don't have time for this today.
No, I hear you. And it wasn't always like that. Like you said, Harold, of course, he definitely does. I was talking to my husband about that the other day. He is somebody that you can have a rational conversation with.
Yeah.
Now I'm gonna say something that's probably gonna get real controversial, but our congressman for years was Anthony Weiner.
Mm.
Anthony was somebody that you could have those conversations with. And he could tell you his point, and he didn't agree with you, and you didn't agree with him, but he would get things done for you. I
Yeah.
worked with him to get a local ferry service started for the community and to help the local Little League. He was just it was a time, I think, too, when you could have those dialogues. And as you said before, it's really sad that we don't have that now.
Well, and I think we also are experiencing the difference between a classic liberal and the modern progressives. And probably the greatest example of that in our country is University of California at Berkeley. They were the birth of the free speech movement. And now it takes 400 police officers to get Ben Shapiro into a room to speak there and back out again safely. And that is the classic example between a classic liberal and a progressive. And so you do have some of the older liberals who are more, open-minded. They're more about fixing things. But now what you're seeing is those classic liberals being driven by the progressive movement. I think Joe Biden is one of those people. When you look at some of the positions he took earlier in his career, it was much more aligned with what you would even see with some moderate Republicans. And now, though, he's being driven by the people who, have the loudest voice and the money in the party. And that's what drives them to these radical leftist ideas, just millions of people pouring across our border, is just probably the most obvious one that's going on now. And he's letting it happen and destroying our country. And, before he wouldn't have ever done that.
No, not at all. You bring me to a segue where a lot of people, all right, they'll say conservatives, but especially the young people are asking, what is a conservative? What does that mean? And the Red Referral Network, I think you do a great job of saying what your values are, and I think those are conservative values. So tell our audience, if you don't mind, what are the values of the Red Referral Network?
Sure. I think traditional values, although I also, as a conservative, I understand we live in America, which is a melting pot of lots of people who believe in, different things. And they need to be allowed to believe in different things. I mean, that's the beauty of America. Some countries, if you say you believe something, they take you out behind a building and shoot you through the head.
Yeah.
Right? Or they take you to the top of the building and throw you off. That's one of the things I find very funny, not funny, strange about the LGBTQ community here in the U.S. that supports Middle Eastern people and Palestine and some of those places, because those folks would literally take, if they found out you were gay, they would take you to the top of the building and throw you off. And so it makes no sense to me. So the way I usually describe it is it's the difference between the traditional worldview and the current worldview, or the growing worldview. And it's simply this: it's the traditional Judeo-Christian capitalistic worldview. Now, there were politicians and leaders in our country who were not Jew or Christian. They were deists, or they were atheists, or they were agnostics, or whatever, but they held to a traditional value system that we call the Judeo-Christian worldview. You don't have to be a Jew or a Christian or a person of faith at all to hold to the traditional Judeo-Christian worldview. Now we have what I call the secular humanist, anti-God, anti-capitalism worldview. And here's the real problem with that, Ellen, is it used to be 60 years ago, Democrats and Republicans both came from that Judeo-Christian worldview, and they argued how to implement it. Now you have people on both sides who hold different worldviews, and they both believe that their side has a moral imperative. It's the moral imperative that both sides believe in that causes the concrete belief system that will never change. If you go to somebody who's pro-life, they're never going to say, "Well, let's let them kill a few babies. We'll negotiate. We'll let them kill a few babies, right?" And then the people on the left would say, nobody should have any choice about what a woman does with her body. And to both of them, they see it as a moral imperative. And if when you see something as moral, now all of a sudden you see my position is good, your position is evil. My position is righteous, your position is unrighteous, and both sides see the other person that way. And therein lies the problem. Never the two shall meet. And so we're really, I believe, less in a political battle, but we're in a worldview battle. We're in a battle for the minds and the belief systems of Americans, because wherever you end up on the worldview, that's where you're going to end up politically.
Yeah, it's a tough one. It's a tough one, and I don't know where it goes. I mean, I've said,
well, and especially when we live in this world where you do have to be able to understand that other people have the right to their beliefs. I'll give you an example. About a year and a half ago, we had the whole drag queen story hour thing that got really big. And most of you listening today, you will remember, if you remember about a year ago, maybe a little more, the video of the young girl who was petting the genital area of one of the drag queens at one of these shows. That happened here in Chattanooga. The person in drag, they didn't tell her to stop. They didn't back away. They sat there and allowed it to happen for 5 or 6 seconds. And that blew up, and everybody got angry, as they should have. And so everybody was, apoplectic about it. And I went to my local state senator and I said, what do we need to do to make this illegal? Make drag shows 18 and over. And he said, get me 2,000 signatures. So I did. I got him 2,000 signatures. And now they passed a law in the state of Tennessee that drag shows are 18 and over. Well, I ended up on a lot of TV shows, a lot of radio shows, and I wrote an article for the Chattanoogan. And basically what I said is, if you're a man and you want to dress up like a woman and dance on tables, have at it. This is America. But no 18 and unders there. We're not going to let you do it in the schools. And they have a problem with it. And I go, well, it's kind of like a traditional sort of heterosexual strip club, right? If a woman wants to take her clothes off and let people look at her, we have places in the city or your state where people can go and do that. But nobody under the age of 18 gets to come in there. We don't have a problem with that. So I wrote an article for the Chattanoogan, and the title of the article was How Conservatives and the LGBTQ Community Can Get Along. And basically what I said is this: I am a white, affluent, middle-aged, Republican Christian male. And I know for a lot of you, that right there means you don't like me. And I'm totally fine with that. You don't have to like me. If something I am or something I did, or some belief that I have makes you not like me, Again, this is America. You are entitled to that. But you must accept that I have the right to be that. And I will accept that you have the right to sleep with whoever you want to sleep with, or dress however you want to dress, or put things in your nose and your face, or tattoo, whatever you want to do. For you, I will accept that you have the right to that. But the problem I find with the left is they're not okay with just acceptance. They want approval. They want you to approve of them. It's not okay to say, hey, man, I think you're weird. I don't get why you do or think what you think. But you know what? It's America. Have at it. That's not enough. And so it moves from acceptance to approval. And then I believe it goes to acquiescence. We need to start giving in. And then the last one is advocacy. They're moving us from just saying, hey, look, it's not my deal. You do you, I'll do me. That's not enough. What they're really driving is for me to bend the knee and advocate for why they are important, or whatever. And it's a real interesting battle that's going on in America today.
No, absolutely. I mean, when you look at DEI, it's all about not just accepting, as you said. I mean, we used to have diversity and diversity groups, but it's gone so much further than that that now they want you to be an ally.
Yep. Actually, you know
Yeah,
what? That's another A word. I'm going to throw
yeah.
that. I'm going to throw that in. Now you need to be advocacy, and now you need to be the ally. And you go from being the guy that just says, "Hey, you know what? You do you," to everybody should be like this guy. But yeah, it's interesting. But I think that if we can learn to articulate our position well, I believe that people can think it through and figure it out for themselves.
I think that's definitely true. I think we fall into a trap a little bit in that we think people just assume that they'll understand. I do think we have to spell it out. I
Yeah.
really do. I mean,
Well, and
I
I
would,
also think that people aren't aware of what's really going on. There's a
no.
lot of people that never watch the news, and I can't remember the quote, but what was it? Denzel Washington. They asked once. They said, if you don't read the newspaper, you're uninformed, and if you do read the newspaper, you're misinformed. And I don't know if you've ever seen him say that, but it's kind of a funny thing, right? So I don't know if I'd rather have them uninformed, not watching the news, or if I'd rather have them misinformed by watching the mainstream news. But the uninformed people, they have no clue that these battles are happening. They have no clue as to what's going on.
No, no. So again, and this is I think a question for beyond this show, but how do you help people to be informed? I know Brandon Strock, I've worked with him and his group. I think he's doing a wonderful job with the walkaway movement. I think people like Scott Pressler, people like Lady MAGA USA, all three of whom are gay, by the way, but
Yep.
they are conservatives, are doing a great job. PragerU, I think, just got into a partnership to be in the schools in Arizona, which is driving the left crazy.
Oh yeah.
How dare they teach this in our schools? What this? This is America. You're teaching American values. How can you be against that? But I
Yeah.
think there needs to be a lot more of that. We can't just be complacent and say, oh, they just understand it. No, because they don't have an avenue. They're being bombarded with the mainstream media, as you
Well,
put
and
it.
in a way,
So,
we've abdicated our responsibility.
yeah.
Conservatives tend to be, oh, I just go to work, I do my own thing, I mind my own business, you do you, I'll do me. Whereas the left is much more in an advocacy kind of thing. They are trying to promote what they believe. They're trying to get people to require that they push the boundaries, right? This is how you end up with satanic displays in the state house next to the Christmas decorations, right? Next to the picture, right next to the nativity set. Now we have to have a satanic display because they purposely go after it, and they use our complacency, and they use our laws against us in order just to kind of continue to push that edge and make us further and further away from it. I think that the problem I mentioned earlier is not just a political problem. I think it's a spiritual problem. I think people need to get back into connecting with their own spirituality, because I believe that Judeo-Christian worldview can really produce the right kind of worldview that allows you to articulate the things that you believe in.
No, absolutely. And that's what I speak about, and work with my clients on. To be successful, you have to do three things: connect with your creator and positive energy. You have to define who you are and what you want, and you have to pivot. But it's that connection that's key. And that's whatever that spirituality means to you. I'm not going to shove mine down your throat, and
Yeah.
you're not going to shove yours down mine.
Yeah.
But you have to have some kind of faith and connect with that every day.
Yeah, and I'm always happy to share my faith with people if they ask, but I also understand that people come to different conclusions than I do, and that's totally fine. Again, the American project is so amazing that we have this melting pot. We have the ability to have, I mean, just all the belief systems and the cultures and all those kinds of things. And I do believe that that's its strength. And again, the left uses that against us in this whole immigration thing. It's right. They quote
Yeah.
the saying at the Statue of Liberty, and they say that's why we should let all these people come in because we're a melting pot. We need all these people. That's not the argument. The argument is how do we do it and how do we keep it legal? And that's really the argument. But the left is really good with language. I mean, they run circles. And I'm a writer. I wrote 24 books, and I've given 2,500 speeches. Like you're a speaker, and so words matter to us. And I'm just shocked at how we are constantly being beaten at the language game. And language is what moves people. And it's not mutilating a young woman's body. It's gender affirming care. How can you not be against gender affirming care, right? Or it's not a riot where they just turned over 16 police cars and burned the building down. It's a mostly peaceful protest, Ellen, and they're really, really good at that, and we need to get better at capturing language in order to move people.
No, I agree. I mean, the whole idea about reproductive rights, okay?
Right.
Whatever end of the spectrum you're on with that, you're forgetting that there's a baby involved. I mean,
Yeah.
I say this, I was adopted. I was given up by my birth mother. I thank her I don't know who she was, but
Yeah.
thank her. But there is an alternative to abortion. We can't just talk about reproductive rights. We have to have that dialogue, as you were saying before. And just open it up to that. But it's hard. But I applaud you and Dinesh for giving conservative business people a forum where we can have our discussions, talk about what that means to us, figure out how we can speak to others in our neighborhood, how we can help the conservative movement while we prosper as businesses, because it is important. I mean, there's nothing wrong with being a successful, prosperous business.
Yeah. And we need to, going back to how we talk to people, we need to learn how to communicate people. Let's talk reproductive rights just for one example. Um, they have a great slogan. Well, it's my body, it's my choice. Well, who can argue with that, right? But then you got a couple things that we can say back to them, and that would be, well, you can't take your body and ball up your fist and hit me with it. That's illegal. So it's really not always your body, your choice. You can't take all your clothes off and walk down the middle of the street. That's your body, and you're choosing to go naked down the street, but you don't get that choice. You're not allowed to ingest drugs unless you live in Oregon or Portland somewhere, or wherever they've you're not allowed to, or San Francisco or these places where they're just shooting up on the streets now. You're not allowed to do that. And frankly, I mean, I don't know if anybody's ever been prosecuted for this, but suicide is illegal in a lot of states. You're not allowed to kill your own body. It's against the law to kill your own. Well, but that's my body, my choice. So we have to help people think these things through. And I just don't think most people have ever articulated or learned how to articulate the other answer. And I think the best answer to that is my body, my choice. I would say, here's your problem. That other body is not your body. That is another body. It happens to be inside of you, and it happens to be getting nutrients from you, but it is still a separate individual and a separate human being. So we need to ask, as a society, we need to say, okay, what is the body inside of you, and how do we as society protect it? Because that body does not have a choice. It can't make a choice. So society has to help make that choice and protect that child, because we have a right to life. That is one of the rights that we have, is a right to life. That body has a right to life.
No, absolutely. Those are the rights that were enumerated in the Declaration of Independence.
Yeah.
Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Yep.
But there has to be that discussion. We're coming close to a half an hour. How do people join the Red Referral Network, Chris?
Yeah, it's actually really simple. You come in, you go to redreferralnetwork.com and you register. And once you register, you have a free membership to the overarching group of the Red Referral Network, which will get you entitled to lots of discounts on all sorts of things. We're launching a health sharing company. We've got a business coaching program that's just coming up. We're launching in March. We've got a bunch of different partners that we partnered with, and you can participate in all of those in a free membership. But the paid membership is the local groups. And once you register, it will say join a group, and then you can pick what you want to do. If you are a leader and you've got some leadership skills, we would love to partner with you to lead groups. In fact, the lifeblood of our organization is going to be new leaders who step up and say, I will serve. I'll host a meeting. And you partner with us. We do leadership training. We give you all sorts of documentation. We give you the minute by minute way to host a meeting. You get a video every week from Dinesh D'Souza, which you can build your entire meeting around if you want to. We give you all the things that you need, and then you begin to meet locally. We teach you how to grow a group. We have built our technology so that we will actually help you grow a group. But if you just want to join a group, it will show you all the groups within 50 miles of your location. So we're just launching. I think we launched in 25 cities last week. Was our first week, which is great. All around the country, lots of great people, and so we're excited about that. But people can find out more at redreferralnetwork.com.
And if you're located within 50 miles of the Jamaica Bay in New York City, look for Jamaica Bay Red and join that group.
Yeah.
Chris, on your Facebook page, you share a daily success tip. Could you tell us, do you have a favorite?
Boy, I have so many different ones. I worked with a guy named Jim Rohn for 7 years, and it's kind of funny. I get three responses when I tell people I worked with Jim Rohn. They either say, never heard of him, or he's my favorite speaker of all time, or are you talking about the guy on ESPN, which is Jim Rohn, not Jim Rohn, Rohn. Jim Rohn was a legendary speaker. He gave Tony Robbins his first job. When Tony was 17 years old, he went to work for Jim selling Jim Rohn seminars. And so Tony and I were speakers at Jim's funeral memorial service in Anaheim. We had a few thousand people there for it, and it was great. But he has a lot of them. Off the top of my head, I think probably my favorite one is this: a formal education will make you a living. Self-education will make you a fortune. And what I've gone on to say, taking that, is it's not what you learn in school that makes you successful. It's what you learn after you get out of school and what you apply that makes you successful. Not necessarily rich, but successful. And so I like that one. There's dozens and dozens and hundreds of them. Zig is great. Jim Rohn is great. Tony Robbins is great. All those kinds of things. But I'll tell you the best piece of advice that I ever got. It was actually kind of a weird situation. It's a funny story. I call it a God thing, right? I was at a conference when I was 22 or 23 years old. I was by myself. I went to the conference by myself, and it was like a 3-day conference. And we were during a break, and there's hundreds of people there, and you're just kind of milling around. And I'm standing there, and I kind of turn around, and there were two women, and they were about 50 and 30, 55 and 30. And the younger woman went like this. And she just looked at me, and her jaw dropped open. And I'm like, all right, this is a little weird. I'm like, this is weird. And then she looks at her mother. It ends up, I found out it was her mother. She looks at the older woman, her mother. She looks back at me, and her mother says, is that him? And she goes, it is. And she says, well, tell him. And now I'll give you the backstory before I tell you what she told me. The mother told me later that in the middle of the night, her daughter woke up. They were in their hotel room. And she said, I just had the weirdest dream, Mom. She said, what? She said, I saw a man in my dream, and I'm supposed to give him some advice. And I'm like, okay. And apparently The night before, she had seen me in a dream, and she was supposed to give me some advice. And when we turned into each other at the conference, her jaw just literally dropped. So her mother says, now back to the story, her mother says, well, tell him. And she said, I'm supposed to tell you, be a voice, not an echo. And I mean, I was 23, I'm 50, I'll be 58 in a month. So, what is that? 35 years or something like that, right? And I have always remembered that. Be a voice, not an echo. And I don't know really where it comes from. I've actually looked it up, and somebody accredited it to Albert Einstein. But I think any quote, you can't find the person who said it. They attribute it to either Abraham Lincoln or Albert Einstein. But I have remembered that great piece of advice, and I give that out all the time. Be a voice, not an echo. We don't need more people who are just regurgitating what everybody else says. That's just an echo. And an echo gets fainter and fainter the longer it goes. Be a voice, and come to your own ideas. And my friend Mark Sanborn, I don't know if you're familiar with Mark or not. He's a sort of a big speaker and former past president of the National Speakers Association. He said the number one thing that a thought leader needs to do is think. How can you be a thought leader if you never think? You're not a thought leader if you're just telling somebody what somebody else said. That's a thought repeater. But a thought leader is somebody who actually takes the time to think. And I think we need a lot more thinking and a lot more voices rather than just echoing what somebody else said.
No, that's so, so true. And I'll tell you, that's really why after about a 40-year career in corporate America, where in the last decade or so, I just couldn't be myself. And you couldn't be a conservative. You couldn't. Yeah. And I walked away, and I'm doing what I do now because I wanted to do something. I didn't want to just be silent.
Yeah, good for you.
Or just let things echo around me. So yeah. That's a great, great quote. I really want to thank you for joining the podcast today, Chris. Just reminding our listeners that you can find the Red Referral Network at redreferral.com and follow Chris on Facebook at Chris Widener Speaker. It's been a pleasure having you, Chris. Thank you for your time.
Thanks for having me, Ellen. I appreciate you.
Appreciate you too. That's it for this episode of the Non-Woke Coach podcast. Thanks for tuning in. Please follow the show on your favorite podcast listening platform so you don't miss the next episode. While you're at it, please sign up to our email list at linktree/non-woke-coach, where you can also download free success resources and learn more about my private coaching packages. I'm Ellen McCarthy, the Non-Woke Coach, and until next time, keep embracing your true successful nature.